All right, so the purpose of this training today is to help all of our managers and team leaders complete and follow the proper procedures when it comes to any type of HR policy or procedure that we do. One thing I've found in reference to my managing experience is that oftentimes I have a situation with an employee that needs to be addressed, and I either put it off, or I don't do it, or I don't follow through with the proper paperwork because it means conflict and it creates awkwardness with the employee. And so we just ignore it, we don't do it. And the problem is when we don't do that, two things happen. Number one, we don't document properly what needs to be documented. But more importantly, that employee, I've learned in all my years of management that most employees want to do a good job. Most people want to do a good job. The one thing that we as managers fall down in is letting these managers or letting these employees know that what they can do to improve. If you just let me know what to do, I'll improve it. But if you never let me know, or if you don't sit down and address it with me, that performance never gets better and never increases. So one of the things we wanted to do is pull together everybody for just a half hour and kind of go through some procedures and policies. It's been a long time since we've done that. Record this session so that any new team leader or any new manager that starts gets this same type of consistent training. So Danielle's done a great job of preparing a presentation, be it brief, for only 30 minutes, to help you understand how to do your job better as a team leader and the paperwork that's required, the processes and procedures that we want you to follow in order to be a good manager, in order to get the best and the most out of your employees that you possibly can. So with that, I'll turn the time over to Danielle and let her go through the presentation. And Matt, we've got this up as well. What am I doing?
Are you ready?
No, yep, I'll let you that. I'm going to grab Ryan.
So hopefully I'm not as dry as Wyatt was with ESG, and I will warn you, Marilyn is probably even worse, so hopefully I'm better than that. If you'll go to the first slide, let's get going. We're going to briefly go over new employees, timekeeping, how to do time off requests, any changes, so what forms you need, how to do those, how to counsel employees, and how to do employee terminations, and then go over any questions you have. Next slide. Go ahead and click it again. You'll have to kind of click through this one. So you have a new employee. Go ahead and click it. His name is Carl. He even waves at you. Go ahead and click. As a manager, you've done the interview. You're ready to start him. Here's a note for team leaders. When you're ready to hire them, you're responsible to clean their cubicle. You need to let IT know which cubicle they're going to be in so that they can get their computer set up. You also need to let Chelsea know, because she's going to have a pen, notepad, and their favorite candy bar there for the first day. That's something that we're trying to get going. We want Monday for them to be able to come and get going. We want it so Tuesday, I know Nate, you've got a new employee today, he's not ready to go. Our goal is literally so that Monday they're here, we get the paperwork done, we get their training done. Tuesday, we're ready to roll. We really want that goal to be ready. The hard part is we have a deadline, go ahead Paul, of noon on Friday. If we don't have that deadline done, we can't get everything done, because if you start clicking, this is everything that has to happen between noon and when they start on Monday. Just keep going. This is everything that either I have to do, Jacob in Rexburg has to do, and then eventually an email goes out, and all of these people right here have different aspects that they have to do also before they start on Monday. Any questions? If you ever have a situation where that you have someone that you may want to start, say for example, you have an interview coming in on Friday at maybe 1 o'clock, that hey, you really do want to possibly start them on Monday. Come and talk to me Friday. That way I at least have a heads up that hey, I have someone that I may want to start. If I know, then I can try to budget the time so that I'm better prepared for it. Okay, go ahead. First off, thank you so much as we've switched to the new timekeeping system. As all of you know, we did just switch to a web-based system. With that, managers are in charge of managing your own teams. It used to be that you guys could log on, but employees could not see their own times. Now, you guys can always tell the employees, if you don't know how many hours, log on yourself and look at it. As managers, you have the capabilities of adjusting your employees' times, but your supervisors have to adjust yours. Overtime is discouraged. We do understand though, especially with sales, if your employees are on the phones, don't have them clock out. They do need to stay on the clock when they're on the phone. You know, Saturdays, if they're in the middle of a sale, you know, of course, don't get off the phone just because you're hitting overtime. With missing punches, please just kind of watch it as managers, check on periodically. If you're missing punches or your team is, if you can correct them right away, it makes it a lot easier. Since I've taken over HR and payroll, I'll admit my schedule is literally blocked out within about 5-minute increments of the day. So by Monday morning, literally I am on the run. And if I'm having to go back and catch missing punches, I get stressed. So as much as you can help, it's just greatly appreciated. Approvals are due by 5 p.m. on Mondays by both individuals and managers.
What if an individual isn't here on a Monday?
Okay, very nice way. We actually just figured out that, first off, an employee can approve their time card from home. So,
Jared Downing.
yep, he's actually already approved to clock in, clock out from home, and he can, of course, approve his directly from home. So,
Right, but he's at work usually on Monday. So
He
when
can
I,
do it in any computer.
so he can log in from any computer to approve it, but he can actually on Sunday go ahead and approve his time card.
okay,
So you can actually approve him, for example, if he's, you know, any of the employees on Saturday. If they're here Saturday but they're not going to work, they can approve the whole week before they even leave on Saturday. Same thing on Fridays.
Sorry, if they're sick that day and we don't know it, can we call them or text and say, hey, what are your hours, and then correct it as a supervisor in there?
You can, but you can't approve them. You can approve it as a supervisor, but not as an
They
employee.
have to approve it.
Yeah.
Or approve it.
But again, they can then clock or log in as an employee and view their time card and approve it from home. For example, though, if they don't have it, you know, if they don't have access to the internet at home, if someone's sick, for example, Ryan had one today that's homesick, yesterday and today. He emailed me. Instead of having her log in from home, he actually just copied and pasted her time card. He emailed it to her. She emailed it back saying, I approve of it. I printed it out. I'll attach it to payroll. That way I have at least documentation that she approved her time card. Any other questions? Okay. For time off requests, we do prefer that all requests come in 7 days in advance. That just lets you as supervisors plan and budget time more. Why do we worry about time off requests? Does anyone know? No one?
Well, probably because it's important for part and full-time people to know what they are and to be able to keep them in this category.
Okay, why does that matter though?
Because there's different benefits that happen with part-time versus full-time people.
Okay, there are. Here within our company, we do pay for full-time employees. We pay for their life insurance policy. But it's actually more than that. With especially the implementations with Obamacare, they are very strict as far as what qualifies for part-time and full-time. And we have to keep very strict guidelines on how many employees we have, what benefits we cover. In fact, that's part of, I have this week about a 4 to 8 hour census to complete that covers how many part-time, how many full-time. That's watched very, very closely. And those records have to match. So that's why I track every week. And if an employee has 3 weeks out of 6 that are less or more than 30 hours, we have to start watching that. So.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So, say, like me coming up in December, like I know you want them in a week in advance, but I'm not sure what I'm going to be able to work that week versus PTO.
Yep.
So I've usually just turned it in after the fact. How do you want it?
If you can, go ahead and turn it in before. It helps better plan, especially salaried now. We do need your PTO request done online also. Whether it's paid or unpaid does not matter. We do need it still done online. So like Keith, even unpaid time off will still be done online with the system. If you don't know for sure how many hours you want to do, put in the hours, but then when I go to process the payroll, get with me and then I'll actually do a change on it if we need to. Does that make sense? So put in, do you typically know before I'd run payroll how many hours it would be, or not until after I'd already run the payroll?
I'm not sure.
Okay. On your case where it's salaried, we'll have to just kind of watch it and see. Go ahead and put on yours probably the minimum hours that you'd want. And then we'll just have to possibly do an adjustment in ESG system on that. Does that make sense? Okay.
Does it cut off at 40? No, you wouldn't do like, if I submitted like 16 and it came out to be like 42, you wouldn't pay those extra 2, right?
No, I actually watched that and yes, it's cut off at 40 hours is the max. So for example, if you, before you went on a vacation, if you put in, yes, I want 32 hours of PTO, but then you happen to already work 10 hours, your PTO would be cut back down, so then you only work the 40 hours. Any other questions?
You said 3 out of 6. I thought it was 4 out of 6.
At 3 out of 6, I'll send you usually a note. Once it hits 4 out of 6, then I'll start really worrying about it. Okay. Any questions about PTO versus unpaid leave? Pretty self-explanatory. You know, PTO is paid, unpaid leave is not. Approval process will actually show. All right. To approve your time cards, go ahead and log in with your personal login. It'll pull up to your individual dashboard. If you go time card, it'll pull up the current period that you're at. You can also go to the previous period if you want. You'll see if it's green, it means that it's already been approved. You can actually approve any time that you're currently on. To approve it, you just go time card options, approve time card. You can either approve selected period or days or approve all entries. As soon as you go approve all entries, confirm. And it'll actually turn all of them to green. You could actually pre-approve all of your time. So if you're going to be gone days, you can actually pre-approve it in advance. Yes, Nate?
Why can't we change our own time card?
For basically security reasons. So that
Because they just tell us and we just put it in there.
for,
You know, when we ask, well, when did you clock in? And I just do the same thing, so rather than me just having to tell someone, I can just do it myself. I mean, they're not gonna say, no, you weren't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who challenges the person's time? You do?
it's,
Double check.
it's kind of one of those, it's a double check to say, okay, is it verifiable?
Why we approve it so we can double check. Oh, you know, yeah, I don't think you were here.
But then you have to have your supervisor have that same right and responsibility, right?
Yeah.
So that if you know, as you're double checking your employees, then you should be double checked as well, right?
Yeah.
Aaron approves my time card, right? So it's just a part of
Right.
the approval process
I-
that double checks things.
Right, and I just think it's easier if someone could just go and go, oh, I forgot to punch in, I'll just go in there, this is when I clocked out, rather than me having to go and tell them, hey, what time did you clock out? Okay, put it in there, and then I have to approve it. You know what I
And then
mean?
they have to reapprove it as well.
Yeah,
They
then
do.
they have to reapprove it, then I have to assume.
But it's basically just a double check. You know, is it really there?
If your employee is constantly not, you know, clocking in or clocking out.
Or
and
for
they
you to
have
be
a
sensitive to
problem.
overtime hours, right? For you to be able to make sure that none of your employees are on overtime, or they're not abusing overtime, or they're not using overtime when they shouldn't be, or that they're here when they're going, well, why were you here when you really weren't supposed to be here? And type of
One-
deals like
All of
that.
these things, we have to approve and we have to see it anyway. But the only thing that I'm wondering if we can just cut one of those processes out, so they can just go in and say, oh, I forgot to clock in. I can go to I know what time. I can just put it in there, and then I can approve it, rather than me have to tell them, what is it? Come over there, and they have to approve it, then I have to approve it.
The hard part is there's some of that we can't change. As far as that goes, having a supervisor have to input it, that we can't change part of the program. A supervisor has to input it.
So for me to change anyone's clock, it has to be something.
It has to be a supervisor. An individual
That's just
can't
the
input
program.
it. It is.
And I think the key is if it's done on a regular basis versus a later basis, I think, you know, if your employees can be trained to say, hey, listen, you need to make a change on my time card. I wasn't able to go in, and you do it then versus having to do it, you know, at the end of the week would be easier for you. And then at the end of the week, if you've done it throughout the week, you're not having to go back and try to find them. I think all of your employees need to know that if they missed a punch, they need to let you know.
And it's interesting now, really, Monday morning, I get here at 7:45 typically, and that's one of the first reports I pull, is how many people do we have with missed punches. Most of the time, we're down to about 5 employees that actually have missed punches by Monday morning. Most employees or managers are catching them before it hits Monday. So it's gotten a lot better. When we had a time clock, we had a lot more than that because they weren't being caught until we were printing out the time cards.
Well, and the time clock itself had problems. People were punching in, but it wasn't registering.
Yeah.
So this solved that problem. But I would almost say to your employees, listen, before you leave on Saturday, let's take a look at your time card and make sure everything is correct so that I don't have to worry about it Monday morning.
Yeah, and like you can see, if you do that Saturday before they leave, they could actually approve their time card on Saturday as soon as they clock out. So, any questions on approving time cards?
Not necessarily on approving time cards, but what's like the break policy? Because I think Chelsea told us to kind of wait till about 10 o'clock on Monday so Tasha can kind of fix those short breaks.
You can. If anyone has a break that's less than 30 minutes, Tasha actually takes those breaks back out by law. Typically,
Break is
she'll
30
be.
minutes.
If they leave less than 30 minutes, so for example, if someone clocks out for 20 minutes for a lunch break, we have to take that back out and pay them for that time. So Tasha typically takes those out as soon as she gets here on Monday morning. So if for some reason they have already approved their time card and then she takes it out, it will kick it back out and we'll have to let them know, hey, we need you to reapprove it.
Is that one a day?
It is.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Just one a day, so if somebody took 4 20-minute breaks, those all get taken out?
Yes, it kind of gets a little tricky though with that. So I'd be very careful and watch that. If you have an employee that's clocking out though for 4 20-minute breaks a day, please, we need to do a counseling statement on that because that should not be allowed.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions on
So what's
approvals?
allowed is one major clock out a day.
There is, yes.
Over 30 minutes.
That
Yep.
was 30 minutes.
Yep.
So there's not a 15-minute in the morning and a 10.
That is up to, yeah, it's not a clocked out break. So, and actually here in Utah law is you don't have to actually give a designated break time. It's more up to management discretion, you know, within reason, per se. Any more questions on approving time cards?
To be told though that if your employees leave the facility, like leave this building and go in their car somewhere, they have to clock out.
Yeah. Okay.
What about smoke breaks?
If they're on premise, that's, we actually
Like 10
don't,
cigarettes a day, some people
Yeah.
do, I've seen them.
we don't officially have a policy written down with the chief today.
We're just gonna send Steve out there with a bat.
All right. Any other questions on time card approvals? All right, let's go to time off requests. As an employee, if you go to time off requests, you click on that. To add a request, you just click on add new time off request. You'll see there's either paid time off or unpaid leave. You can select either one.
The salespeople, can we click on one or the other?
It will let you select on one or the other, but if you select PTO, I will change it to unpaid leave, even if the supervisor approves it. Okay, you can select for it to be either a single day, multiple day, or partial day. If you select multiple days, you put in the days that you're going to be gone. You must specify how many hours that you're going to be gone each day. I'll click going down. Has a spot where you can put notes. And then you save the request. It'll automatically send out an email to the supervisor as it's listed. It also has optional, still has Lindsay. It also lists me. It automatically, though, does send an email to me as the administrator of our time clock. It was successfully sent. Okay. You can see then it will show it in pending status until the supervisor either approves it or denies it. Any questions on submitting requests? Okay. To approve a request, let me show you how to do that. And you'll see Paul just got a time off request. So if you go time off requests, as manager, when you sign on, it shows your dashboard. Let me go back to there actually. It'll show you right here, time off requests, how many you have as a manager currently.
For the year.
It'll show kind of how many you have pending, if you have any employees that have current ones. It'll show how many right here under pending, how many you have approved, if you have any that are conditionally approved. Conditionally approved ones are ones that maybe the employee submitted, but then you as a manager made changes on. For example, if you had it, maybe the employee put PTO, but then you had to change it to unpaid leave, it'll have it as conditionally. So let's look at mine right there. And if you wanted to approve it, you'd click green. If you want to unapprove it, you just hit the X. I'm just going to say I can't be gone. And we're going to not approve it. When you deny it, it actually then triggers an email back to the employee to let them know also.
So once you approve it, can you go back in and unapprove it?
You can. What it'll actually happen is that you just go to the rejected and click on it there. And you can make comments here. You can, and then if you look there, now under the improved, there it is. Oh, hold on. Oh, that's a different one. Sorry, I've been playing in this program for a while. It should be showing in there. It may have had to go back to me for approval. But you should be able to. So like I said, I'll have to double check and see.
So who approves Paul's?
Aaron.
Aaron.
And, okay. Who approves
Everybody.
Didi.
Yeah.
It's set up so we do. Everybody has checks and balances within the system. So, any questions on submitting time off requests or approving time off requests? If you do, let me know. Next, we'll go to changes. Most of you are probably familiar. This is a change form. We use a standard form that ESG provided for us. Go ahead and click. All changes must be signed by both the employee, direct supervisor, and executive over that department. Go ahead. All team changes must be signed by the team leader and by Paul Mix or Aaron Peterson. All team status changes, prober to closer, need to be signed by the team leader and Paul Mix or Aaron Peterson. And all change forms must be turned into HR. We can't make a change without the paperwork. Okay, go ahead, next slide. All changes must be processed through HR. So managers, team leaders, go ahead and fill out the change form. They'll sign it, get it to me, and then we'll go ahead and make the changes. Nice thing, just to let you know, Kevin has shown me how to make the changes in CMS. So pretty well now, as long as I've got a few seconds, as soon as I get the form, I can make the updates in CMS for you. So hopefully that'll go a lot faster now. We won't have to be worrying about sending emails to Kevin. Any changes, prober to closer, executive mentor, anything team changes, hopefully it'll be a lot faster, a lot more seamless. Any questions? Go ahead and click on that. Again, even shakes. Okay, keep clicking through. Again, just need the paperwork, all the funded documentation. All right, go ahead and just click through these till we get them all on there. As I took over HR in September, one of the things I realized is, I hate to say it, but there's some parts of our HR files that just are not really there. One of the things that Josh and I talked about is, as we get a lot of rehires, there wasn't very good data for him to be able to come and say, hey, well, what do we have on this past employee? And I really set some goals as far as what can we do to have better rehires? What can we do to try to get people to stay? What are we looking at? What do we need to do as a company? And so I've actually went through over the last 3 months and tried to really look at what do we need to do better and what aspects do we need to change and how can I help out with that? What kind of data do we need to collect? So with that, if you go to the next one, one of the things that we really hit is we have had terminations. So go ahead and click the fund counseling form. I hate to say it, but this form is really negative. You know, you look at it and it's all about the negatives. So this is what we have right now. And yes, it is the bad form. I'm going to be rechanging this so that it is focusing more on the positives as well. Go ahead and click through. We do need to document any verbal, written, and suspensions that we do, but the new form that I'm getting ready to make, I want to focus on what goals we set with employees. So when you're talking to them, you know, look at what goals are we setting. Do we want them? What is their talk time we want on the phone? What goals? How much sales do we want them to have? How are we going to help them accomplish those goals? So are we setting as far as, you know, how much are they going to be on the training site? We need to make sure that that is written down so that we have some way to verify it with them. How can, as supervisors, we help them accomplish that? We need to have deadlines. And then also, how are we going to follow up with them? So if it's okay, I want to try to get that form made within the next week. And then especially with team leaders where that directly impacts you, if I can give it to you, give me feedback and see what we need to change on it. I would really appreciate it a lot. Because I want to be able to help you guys as much as possible get the best team members that you can. Because sales run the business, it does. Any questions?
We have access to, right?
Yes,
Today logo.
it is.
Okay.
Yep. And I do. That's what we have right now.
Where do we get it?
This, you actually have it on the internet site under documents. But it's...
Now, when we want to do, you know, this counseling, do we run that by person above us, or do we just do that as managers and do it? Or
You can do this one just directly yourself. You know, so if you have someone that you do, like I said, this one is pretty well, if you have something that you need to, you know, correct a behavior for, is what this one really is.
Now, if it's something to do with maybe a more serious matter, maybe it's a sexual harassment issue that
Yeah.
probably could involve, you know, more of a possibly higher discipline or whatever. I think it's always good to counsel with either HR or counsel with your supervisors, just to say, hey, I've got a situation here, how would you handle this, and kind of discuss this.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that you hit with it is if you're looking at terminating an employee, I need to know in advance. There's very strict laws. Utah, with a termination, we have 48 hours to get them their final paycheck. And in order for that to happen, I've got to know in advance, because we have to have documentation of what warnings did we give them. And literally, I have to have 3 of these within 30 days of their termination. So I need to know, were they not meeting their dials? Were they not meeting their phone time? And so I need that documentation with it. Any questions on that?
So it says their employees are not required to sign the council report. So if we present that to them and they decide, choose not to, I don't want to sign it.
Yep.
The documentation still serves
It does.
a purpose,
Yep.
right? Even without them signing it.
It does.
Okay.
Yep. And as long as I have it that you've counseled them, even an email will work and suffice that you've sent it to him, as long as I've got the date, the time, this is what was said. Even if you do a verbal with them, if you will fill this out as the manager and give that to me and sign it, that counts.
Yeah, and it's just a trust thing, right? Because who's to say, right? I mean,
Yeah.
well, I did you talk with him? Yeah, I did.
If
Without them signing
Could they
it,
say
Yeah.
they
the
don't have
employee,
validation.
the employee refused to sign?
you can.
Yeah, can you
Yep.
document that? And
You can. It's always better to put that than nothing.
okay.
Yeah.
Or you can always have another manager there with you.
Yeah, that's true, because it has 2 signatures for
It does.
supervisor and management. Yeah.
So you're basically saying they need 3 warnings before they can be fired?
It's best. The tough part is both Utah and Idaho are at-will states. But for example, if we were going to end up in a discrimination lawsuit or any type of an unemployment situation, unless we have this documentation or documentation of some kind, we will be charged the unemployment for it, guaranteed. If we have this documentation, it will not be held against us. Simple as that.
Well, there may be situations, according to the employee manual, that means immediate termination.
Yes.
And those are identified in the employee manual, right? So that would be where you wouldn't need the 3 warnings.
Yeah.
If the person's violated a procedure or broken a rule that means immediate termination, still one of these, but you wouldn't need 3.
Yeah. So like for us, red flag warning, something that, you know, if they're making massive false claims where we are in cells, if they have, you know, a sexual harassment where we can actually have it proven, we call an ESG, those types of situations we can do immediate termination. But if it's just a basic cells where they're not meeting expectations, we've got to have 3. Any other questions? Okay, on to the next. If you do a termination, right now, pretty basic form, go ahead and click.
It is big.
It is very basic, I know. Just to let you know, the hard part is though, is yes, it's very basic, but as an employer, there's some massive issues that you have. There was just a lawsuit I found out about with the ESG. Gal had a disability, a learning disability, never disclosed it to the company. The company got charged the lawsuit because they never asked, do you have any issues with learning? A major lawsuit the company lost because they didn't ask if she had a learning disability. Another one that ESG just handled was an age discrimination lawsuit because they terminated an employee and the employee felt like it was because of their age. So you have to be very careful. One of the ones that will hit a lot here is if we're doing terminations because they're not meeting their matrix. That's one we can document very easily. We just need to make sure and do the paperwork for it. Any questions?
I think you mean probably metrics.
Or metrics, yes.
Yeah. Guys, I would give you a little admonition. Whenever I have a sensitive situation to talk with an employee, I always bring him into my office and I say, would you mind if I spoke with you freely, or can I have your permission to speak frankly? By doing that, it kind of sets the tone that what I'm about to talk about is going to be somewhat of a sensitive nature, and that I'm asking your permission to be able to talk to you about that in a sensitive way. And it just seems to help and kind of breaks down the barriers, and then I can speak openly, gently, kindly, as much as I can. But at least it's a great way to start something and approach a subject that sometimes is very delicate, right? I haven't liked your performance, or in this particular case, I haven't, you know, what you've been doing is not the right thing, and we need to correct that behavior. But if you can address it that way, it just becomes comfortable. You're in there in a position of helping, not hurting. You're wanting to try to make them a better employee, not a worse employee. And I think if you handle it that way, that can be a changing experience for the employee. And you can get a change coming from them, where otherwise if you never share it with them, it never changes, and it just gets worse. And what do? You end up firing because it gets worse. We have no documentation, and then we open ourselves up to liability and exposure, where if it was handled correctly, there's a good chance that employee would have made the change necessary and been a great employee. It's just us and the way we handle it and the ability to document it makes it really important.
Okay, go on to the next one. Okay, go ahead and click. One of the things that I went ahead and did, and we're actually going to send it out to employees as they leave. We're going to ask them to fill it out when they leave, but then also ones we're going to send back that have left for the last little bit is a questionnaire. We're going to do it with what is it, Monkey or Survey Monkey.
Yeah, so
it'll be anonymous. They can fill it out. They can have us contact them if they choose. But it's just basic questions to know what did we do well as a company, what did we not do so well. I want to find out, why are people leaving? You know, we have a lot of employees that are no call, no shows. Why? I want to find out. See what we can do to actually improve as a company and as an employer. Part of that also is, as I said, I want to find out for people as we go to rehire them, what kind of data do we need? And so I have developed a form that I want to roll out that's an exit interview that management needs to fill out when someone leaves. Basically asks, were they on time? Did they meet the metrics? Were they, making sales? Basic information as well. And I'll have that available here in the, kind of where all my files are for management to fill out every time that you have a termination or have someone leave. Any questions?